You've been here before. This conversation, this moment, this smell in the air. You know with absolute certainty that this has already happened. But that's impossible. Or is it? What if déjà vu isn't a memory glitch? What if the Mandela Effect isn't mass confusion? What if some people literally get stuck in time? Tonight, 11 stories, and one theory that explains all of them. My name is Mariella. Welcome. Let's start with something that affects everyone. Where is New Zealand? Most people, especially those who studied maps before the 2000s, remember it to the northeast of Australia, to the right and above. Look at a map right now. New Zealand is to the southeast, lower, and to the right, significantly lower. This is not a small detail. This is an entire island the size of Great Britain that thousands of people remember in the wrong place.
I am a geography teacher, 20 years. I taught from this map. I know where everything is. New Zealand was always further north. I would bet everything I own on it.
Similar stories about Japan. Thousands remember it further from the Asian coast. About Australia, many remember it closer to the equator. About the shape of Africa, most remember it more symmetrical and less stretched toward the south. A world map, something we have all seen thousands of times. And thousands of people remember it differently.
Either all the world maps have changed, or we remember a different world.
Another case that rarely gets discussed. On the Mandela Effect research forum, thousands of users from different countries wrote that they all remember the same non-existent US president. They remember a president between Carter and Reagan, a white man, slightly bald, in office less than a year, died in office or left due to illness. No such president ever existed. Carter, Reagan, nobody in between. But the descriptions of this non-existent man are similar. Details vary, but the overall image matches. People from Germany, Australia, Brazil, who never communicated, describe the same man who never existed. A user called President, who wrote,
I asked my father. He is a political scientist. He looked at me strangely, then stayed quiet for a long time, then said, I also remember this man. I never thought to question whether he actually existed.
A political scientist who never thought to question whether a president he remembers actually existed. Most déjà vu experiences last seconds, sometimes a minute. This person's lasted 3 days.
It started on Monday morning. I woke up and felt, I've already done this, already gotten up, already brushed my teeth, already looked out this window. I decided it would pass. It didn't. All day, every action came with absolute certainty that I'd already done it. The same words, the same gestures, the same thoughts. By the second day, I was panicking because I started anticipating what would happen a second ahead. Not guessing, knowing. Who would enter the room? What they would say. When the phone would ring. By the third day, the feeling began to fade. By Wednesday evening, it was gone. Like someone had pressed a button.
He saw a doctor. MRI, normal. EEG, normal. The psychologist said, stress.
But I know it wasn't stress, because I knew what the doctor would say before he opened his mouth.
Another classic Mandela Effect case. Billy Graham, American evangelist, died in 2018. Thousands of people remember his death in the early 1990s. They remember the funeral, the news coverage.
I was a teenager when Billy Graham died. I remember my mother crying. I remember us discussing it at dinner. It was the early 90s. When he died in 2018, I was in shock. I had already buried him. I had already lived through his death. How could he die again?
His story is not unique. On the same forums, thousands of people with the same memories, different countries, different families, one identical, non-existent death.
I grew up in a small town in Ohio. I remember its name. I remember the streets, the school, the ice cream shop on the corner, the owner's face. 5 years ago, I tried to find this town online. It doesn't exist on maps, not in archives, not in census records. Several people I was friends with there don't remember the town. They remember me, but say we met somewhere else. I found one girl I was close friends with as a child. I called her. She remembers me. She remembers our class. She does not remember the town. She says we went to school somewhere else entirely. I have no photographs from that town, not one. As if that entire period of my life existed only in my mind. But I remember the taste of that ice cream, strawberry, with chocolate chips. You don't invent things like that.
Let's stop. Because before you hear 6 more stories, let's look at what science actually says about déjà vu and the Mandela Effect. Around 70% of people experience déjà vu at least once in their lives, most commonly between the ages of 15 and 25, more often in people with vivid imaginations and higher intelligence. What happens in the brain? The main theory, dual processing failure. The brain processes information along 2 simultaneous paths, conscious and unconscious. Sometimes the unconscious path gets ahead of the conscious one by a fraction of a second. When the conscious path finally receives the information, it is already tagged as familiar. The second theory, memory error. The brain finds a partial match with a past experience and generates the feeling of a complete match. The third theory, and the most controversial, quantum interference. Some physicists suggest that parallel versions of reality may occasionally bleed through into ours. Déjà vu is a memory of an event from a parallel timeline. On the Mandela Effect, official science says false memory. The brain fills in gaps using logic, expectations, and the influence of others. We remember not what happened, but what should have happened. But here's what's harder to explain. Why do thousands of people share identical false memories? Why is the pattern so consistent? Why do people remember not just the event, but specific details, concrete, verifiable, identical? The parallel realities theory is not just science fiction. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is a serious scientific concept. If reality branches at every moment of decision, then memories of another branch are theoretically possible. The Mandela Effect is especially powerful in pop culture. Reddit user, username, wrong ending.
I remember the ending of Pretty Woman, the 1990 film with Julia Roberts. In the ending, I remember she doesn't leave with him. She chooses independence. He drives away alone. I watched the film again last year. The ending is different. Happy. He comes back. She runs out to meet him. I sat there in complete shock. I found a form. Hundreds of people remember the same ending I do. The dark one. No happy ending.
Similar stories about dozens of films. People remember scenes that don't exist, dialogue that doesn't exist, endings that don't exist.
I didn't mix it up. I watched this film 5 times as a child. I remember crying at that ending. How do you mix up something you cried over?
And now time loops.
I don't know how to explain what happened. I woke up on Wednesday, lived through the day, went to sleep, woke up, and it was Wednesday again. The same Wednesday. Not a similar Wednesday, the same one. The same news on the radio. The same conversation with a colleague word for word. The same error in the report that I had already fixed the day before. Back again. It happened 4 times. 4 Wednesdays in a row. On the 5th attempt, Thursday arrived. I remember all 4 Wednesdays, separately. This was not a dream. I went to work. I ate. I talked. I felt tired at the end of the day. And in the morning, I started over. No one around me noticed. For everyone else, there was one Wednesday. Only I lived through it 4 times. I never told anyone. I still don't understand what it was, but I remember all 4 versions of that day. The details differ. I behaved slightly differently each time.
I had déjà vu about a specific person. I met him on the street, and I absolutely knew. I know him. I know his voice. I know how he laughs. I know he drinks his coffee without sugar. We started talking. His name was Mark. We had never met. I checked. No mutual acquaintances, no shared places, no reason we should know each other. But at some point in the conversation, he said, "You too." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You also feel like we know each other. I can see it." We spent 3 hours talking like old friends. He knew things about me that I hadn't said, small details, that I can't stand loud music, that I have a scar on my left knee. We exchanged numbers. I called a week later. The number doesn't exist. I couldn't find him on social media. The Mark I met doesn't exist anywhere except that conversation.
I've lived in this city for 30 years. I know every street, every intersection. One day I left the house and walked my usual route to work, the route I've taken for 5 years, and halfway there I realized the street was wrong. Not a different street, the same street, but different. The building on the corner was different. A shop had disappeared. In its place, a parking lot. I asked a passerby how long the parking lot had been there. He looked at me strangely and said, "Always, as long as he could remember." I found old photographs of that corner, in all of them, a parking lot, no shop that I remember. I remember buying newspapers there every morning. I remember the vendor, the smell of fresh print, but there are no photographs, no shop, and no one else remembers it.
A week before an air disaster, I dreamed it. Not a metaphor, a specific flight, a specific airport, a specific number of casualties. I wrote the dream in a diary, the date is there. Then the disaster happened, the details matched. This has happened to me 3 times, 3 different events, 3 diary entries before they occurred. I don't want this to be true, I would prefer to be crazy. Because if it's true, it means somewhere in my brain there is access to things that haven't happened yet, and I cannot turn it off. The 4th dream came 3 months ago. I won't say what was in it. I very much hope that this time I'm simply wrong.
I was driving home. Late. Dark road. I saw a person on the side of the road. I slowed down. I looked. It was me. The same jacket I was wearing at that moment. The same face. The same height. The person on the roadside was looking at me. I was looking at him. I pressed the accelerator and drove away. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I still don't know who that was or what it was. But sometimes I wonder, what if that was me from another timeline? And what happens to a person who meets themselves?
"11 stories. Memories of things that never were. Days that repeated. Towns that don't exist. Meeting yourself on a dark road. Maybe memory is imperfect. Maybe the brain gets confused sometimes. Or maybe reality isn't as singular as we think. Have you experienced déjà vu? Or do you remember something that others insist never happened? Leave a comment. Subscribe if you haven't already. Next time, stories of people who heard voices and what those voices told them. Good night. Or has this already happened?